Hi everyone! In today's video we're going to see some differences between Italy and New York City, culturally and socially wise. We decided to record this video because of our stay in New York City, so we're going to talk about some differences before the aforementioned countries. So just let's get started with the first topic.
We've been staying in New York for 2 weeks now, and what we all noticed first was that New York is a very inclusive city. In fact, it is known to be like one of the most inclusive cities in the whole world. And as you walk down the streets, you can hear different languages, you see different faces, different way of dressing, and it's just you get in touch with many different cultures all at once. During our stay in New York, we visited, for example, neighborhoods such as Chinatown and Little Italy that really make foreigners realize that these minorities add and still has an impact on the society nowadays. So different cultures are not put in lower positions or forgotten.
Yeah, we find basically the opposite situation in Italy. We're used to see always the same faces, like a sort of prototype of an Italian. Also, as a country, we are more attached to traditions, and we may fall easily into prejudices, especially because the Italian population is mainly elderly, so it's obvious that our older generations are less open-minded than the American ones.
In fact, the American society is much more young and dynamic as opposed to Italy, which is old, static, and close-minded. Here in the city, we have experienced a completely different atmosphere than the one we are used to back at home. Here in New York, you're free to be whoever you want without having to worry about what other people are thinking of you. In fact, you won't receive any dirty looks just because of what you're doing and what you're wearing and who you really are. To sum it up, this is what we got from our experience here. The freedom you have here in New York isn't anywhere else in the world, and you don't have to put yourself in a box. You just have to be yourself.
So some of the differences I noticed between the Italy and the US is about alcohol and smoking, and the first main differences is the minimum age, because in the US you can buy alcohol and cigarettes at 21, while in Italy from 18. And maybe because in the US you can get a driver's license at 16, while in Italy at 18. And also I noticed something strange, because in the US you can get drafted into the army at 18, but at the age you can still drink, so that's a little weird. And also in Italy, we can say that there's a culture around drinking, because it's an activity to do with friends, when you go out, you go to a party, or even during family gatherings, during meals and things like that. And also in the US, the selling of alcohol and cigarettes is way more controlled than it is in Italy. In Italy, you have to look just a little bit older, and you can buy whatever you want, even without showing an ID, so that's easier to buy it. And also in Italy, smoking is more common, let's say, especially between teenagers. And while in the US they don't even allow smoking in open places, because maybe they don't want second-hand smoking. While in Italy, sometimes it's okay if you smoke inside, even they don't tell you anything. So that's what I noticed.
A great difference that I noticed during my experience in New York is the tip system. In fact, in New York, the minimum wage is $13 per hour, but waiters are paid under the minimum wage due to the tip system. This system is not compulsory, but is strongly advised.
and so it requires the customer to pay an additional 18% to 22% of their expenses as a tip. In Italy, the tip system actually does not exist because waiters they gain a minimum wage, they gain a monthly wage, and so a tip would be appreciated, but it is not required, neither compulsory.
Okay, so I'll be talking instead about the paid leave, how the difference between in Italy and in New York. The state of New York actually gives paid leave as a right only to employees of corporations that have a net income of about $1 million a year, and also is accrued leave, which means that for every 30 hours of work, the worker gains 1 hour of paid leave. This system is the complete opposite to the Italian one. In Italy, workers employers are required to give out at least 170 hours yearly of paid leave.
I've actually noticed many differences in regard of patriotism, and we want to talk about this topic in Italy and how we live that. Then I'll explain how they live in
Yeah,
America.
I feel like I've noticed how, in this country, like every single house basically has a flag, an American flag, and I feel like this is a very good sign of patriotism in this country. And whether in Italy we actually don't have this thing, and I feel like just the old people are the ones in Italy that are actually a little bit patriotic, just because there was dictatorship, and they are the ones that are actually a little bit more related to the past and not actually to the present, because actually the new people are starting to get
Yes, the younger one.
Yeah, the younger one are very, very, very different, and actually they tend to just not be attached to the country itself, and they start to just criticize the country a lot. And
Yes, that's the main difference, because you have here in America, even from a young age, people in school love their country because they start to see film that talk about wars and how people that work in that field, so like in the army, they're seen like a hero. So they want to be like them, and they see loving their country and war as something good, as something that should be more common. Also, we have seen, like we have visited the Intrepid, the museum, and even there we have seen a lot of young people studying and understanding many different things about war and loving this topic. In Italy, we never see something like that. They were genuinely interested in the topic and in the topic of war, and that's the main reason that we have found on patriotism.
So I will talk now about the difference between the New Yorkers' youth culture and Italians' youth culture. We can definitely see a lot of differences as well as a similarity. So focusing on this topic, we can see that American teenagers are full of life and they care a lot about their independence, considering both the individual but also the social aspect. So for example, they start working at a really young age and they move out of their parents' house really early. On the other side, in Italy, young people invest more time on studying and later going to university, and moving out of the parents' house really late, at their early 30s, which is in comparison really late. So when talking about the social aspect, American young people differ a lot from Europeans by putting a lot of effort in various social movements and demonstrations, like for example Black Lives Matter, Fridays for Future and Pride. While in Italy, only Pride is only once a year, and even then not in every city, so you can definitely see this difference there. This sense of freedom and this sense of just social movements getting represented, can definitely be seen in clothing and style. Therefore, if you walk around in New York City and on the other side in Italy, you can definitely see way more variety in New York, from elegant clothes to streetwear and colorful clothing. On the last point, as already mentioned, we have the similarity, which is in sports, but also there we have a small difference, with the New Yorkers adoring basket and baseball, and in Italy, just as generally also in Europe, having soccer, athletic, and also tennis as the biggest roles. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Today I'm going to talk about the differences between the education system in the US and in Italy. So we decided to talk about this because we have had a direct experience of the education system in Italy, having grown up in Italy and having attended high school, middle school and elementary school in Italy. But Antonio and I also had an indirect experience of the education system in the US through friends and the media. So I hope you like our topic, and I'm going to start off by talking about the fact that in Italy we have specialized high schools. So when you start high school, you have to choose one type of high school, and that's that you're going to be stuck with. You cannot mix and match subjects. That is the thing you do in the US. And also talking about subjects, as I previously stated, you can choose different subjects, and you have lots of subjects to choose from, and that's not the same in Italy, because as I said, you have to stick just to those subjects that you choose with your high school. Also, private schools are not as important in Italy as they are in the US, because in Italy they're not as popular. Basically nobody attends them, and whereas in the US lots of people, or there are quite a few people that attend them, and this just highlights the fact that the education system in the US is not equal, because if someone cannot afford to go to a private school, they'll have a worse education, which is truly not fair. And also the average level in public schools is worse in the US compared to the one in Italy. So this is also another point that underlines the fact that education is unfair here. Also, we have just talked about high school, but we also wanted to talk about university. And the thing that we wanted to talk about was that university fees in the US are higher, and the fact that people often have to take out loans or have to go into debt to pay off their university fees. Whereas in Italy it's not the same. Like the lower is your salary, the less you'll pay university, and you'll get much more help from the state. And also scholarships are a huge difference, because in the US you can have scholarships for sports because you play sports really well, or scholarships in general, and they're not a huge thing in Italy. We don't use them as much, we don't see them as much. So that's the last big difference that I wanted to talk about. So I hope you liked our part of the video, and if you did, drop a thumbs up and subscribe.
Talking about the hourly wage and but that's sbagliato. Very wrong. Okay, so hello. We're going to talk about workers' rights, since you are very interested in them, and also in Italy they are very much different. So, hello, has been Scottiso.